Hey y'all, it's me, Happy Anderson. Welcome back if you've been here before, and if you're new, thank you for watching. Today we're going to be redoing these things. This is a few of the final products that we'll be doing, all from thrift stores that I found here locally, or the trash bins, such as this board. So if you like these sort of things, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified. So this is project number one. It's a $2 tray that I got from our local Habitat. And what I'm going to do is I took the sticker off and I'm using 220 grit sandpaper just to sand it down really good so that there's no rough edges anywhere. I should say that I had dental work done this morning, so I do know that I'm a little lispy, but I really needed to get this video done, so bear with me here, and I do apologize. So once I get it sanded, I decided to try out Waverly's Moss Green paint. So you can see on my workbench already that I've just used a bunch of different products and did them over in it. So I'm actually going to end up using 3 coats of this. Really and truly it only needed 2, but I went back with the 3rd coat and just touched up a little bit. So I'm just making sure I'm using a chip brush and I'm just applying the paint. The first coat I don't really care too much. It will not always cover 100%, although this does give pretty good coverage. And if you're going for the chippy look, really and truly you could just do one coat. Okay, I'm still new to YouTube, you guys, so you're going to see the back of my arm here. So, you learn as you go, and hopefully from here on out, the next couple of videos, I will have a different camera angle. But all I'm doing here is applying the first coat of paint. I use chip brushes for this sort of thing, and I get them from Harbor Freight. They run sales all the time. I want to say I get 50 for around $10. So, and if I know that I'm going to, like this project, I used a bunch of green. I just put the paintbrush inside of a Ziploc bag, and it'll keep the paint wet, so I don't actually have to clean it. And then once I'm done doing a couple projects, I just simply toss the brush. Um, they're so cheap, I don't save them. And then here's the second coat applied. And like I said, pretty good coverage. And then on to the 3rd coat. And the only reason I did 3 coats is because I was doing a stencil. So I wanted to make sure that it was really covered. And here's my stencil that I created. A lot of people have been asking me for this stencil, and it's one that I personally made. So I think I'm actually going to make it available for sale. And I'll either make the SVG in case you have a cutting machine so that you can apply, you can just buy the SVG instead of buying the actual stencil. Okay, so I'm just applying transfer tape and going to cut it down the sides, and then I'll rub it down really good. And what this does is just help it stick to the transfer tape so that when you put your stencil onto your project, all the letters and little pieces come up with it. You can and if it's not all the way stuck down, so I can adjust it a little bit. And once I get it where I want, that's when I'll actually press down with my fingers really good and then go back and burnish it again. Once I have it nice and secured, I will then lift the transfer tape. I always pull towards me, and I use my hand a little on the stencil, and this will help your stencil from lifting up. And if you miss any of the little pieces, you can just lay the transfer tape back down, rub a little bit, and then try again. And it really does help. Now, I also go back through each little area and make sure with my finger that it's completely secure. And another thing I do to prevent bleeding is this. I take whatever my base color is and I use it as the first color on the top of the stencil. What this does is truly cuts down on your bleeding. And what bleeding is when I'm going to use black, is when the black like seeps underneath your stencil and creates these blobs everywhere. And it can be cleaned up, but sometimes you can still see where you cleaned it up. So this truly helps and cuts down tremendously on bleeds. Now once this is dry, I will come back with, I prefer Waverly black chalk paint. It is super black. And so with some of my stencils, I have to do up to 5 coats on. Waverly, generally 2 to 3 coats max is all I need to apply. But if you notice, I'm actually lifting up each time. I'm not like swiping the paint or brushing the paint. What I'm doing is pouncing. And this is just a little makeup sponge that I have, and I wash it out and reuse it. And I'm just going to pounce. You want light coats. You would much rather do 5 light coats than 1 thick coat, lift it up, and then see that there's blobs and bleeds everywhere. But again, the Waverly Black, for some reason, it is super black, and it gives me really good coverage. And so generally, I only need 3 coats. 2 coats is generally what I do, but sometimes you'll want a third. If you're going to do an aging effect, like, you may only need 1. But again, you want very light strokes, and you want pouncing motion. See how each time my hand is coming up? That's what we're looking for. Okay, once it's done, I'm actually going to lift my stencil up while the paint is still wet. You're just going to be very careful because you don't want to smear anything. So I just pull up the big part of the stencil. Now I'll still have all my little letters on the insides filled in, and I tend to let it dry a little before I come back and actually remove those. And here we go. Here's the finished product. I think it came out really good. Okay, on to our next project. I got these 2 pens for 50 cents each, or $1. And I used that Zinsser oil-based primer and painted them both out in white as my base coat. What this does is allow everything to stick to them. So I showed you what it looked like. Your first coat's going to be horrible, but the second coat, you get really good coverage on it. And then here I am using up some more of that Waverly Moss green on this one, and I'll do another one, the other one in white. But by also priming, I really and truly only needed 1 coat I could have gotten away with, but I ended up going back with a second coat and literally just touching up where I needed to. But I really enjoy priming with the Zinsser. It is an oil-based primer, but it dries in about 2 hours, and it sticks to glass, metal, everything like that. So here they are, painted. And then I had a baby crib, and this is what the spindles look like. And so I just cut down 2 different sizes, 4 of each one, and I'm going to apply them to the bottoms. And what I'll do is I'll use E6000 and a little bit of hot glue to hold them in place. And I first just lay out where I want them to be, and then I take the E6000 and then a little dab of hot glue. And because the hot glue will not hold it by itself, but it does keep it in place for you while the E6000 dries overnight. And I'll just leave them overnight to dry. So I'll just apply all 8 legs, 4 to this one, 4 to the other one. And I did 2 different sizes just because there was no special reason. And I'm trying not to apply too much pressure. I will flip them over, and when they dry, I will dry them standing on their feet and just put a little, either a can of soup or something on the inside, just something to lightly weight them down so that there is pressure applied to the glue while it's drying. I got a little too much glue on that one, so I rubbed them together to disperse the glue. Hopefully this lisp will clear up in the next couple of weeks, you guys. I had a few teeth implanted, and so it's just going to take me getting used to them. I think my family's trying to make me feel better. They keep telling me it doesn't sound that bad. So here I'm just going back and touching up where I see a few little spots here and there. But like I said, really and truly, I could have got away with 1 coat. And if you want a stencil on the inside, you can. You could write a cute little saying on the outside, but I chose just to keep these plain. I'm going to put them in my booth, and so I have a lot of things that have wordings and sayings on them, so I do like to put a little good mix of this plain as well. And again, here I'm just touching up the green paint. Wasn't completely necessary, but Little Miss Perfectionist here just had to go back and touch up. And then here's our final products. This is both of them together. And then here's the white one and the green one. Okay, for the final project, I actually got all these pegs for $1. But what I did was I cut the pegs off and decided to make a board with a peg. So I took, because they were too light, I took Waverly wax, watered it down, and then just used it as a stain. Just rubbed it on and wiped it off. And then you can do multiple coats, that's what I'm showing you here, to get the right color that you want. Then I just found the middle of this board that I found in the trash. And I got this drill bit that is the same size as the dowel rod. And I'm cutting a hole. Again, sorry, new at filming, so you're going to see the back of my arm. And then I made sure that it was deep enough and that I knew that the pegs would actually sit in there. And this was the center peg. I just found the center and did one. And then I wanted 9, so I just evenly spaced out from the center, evenly on each side. And then just drilled the holes. Oh, there's that. So I decided to go ahead and put the backs on. And that way it would be easier and I wouldn't have to fumble with the pegs being on it, trying to attach hooks to the back of it. So I just used 2 saw hooks for the back too, and they're brass. And I just nail them in, 1 to each side. This board I found in the trash, and it was already patinaed like this. I just made sure that I took 220 grit sandpaper and sanded it down so that no more would actually come off. And then sealed the board with a clear poly. You can use 2 times clear spray paint, or I happen to just have some poly in the can, and I just put 1 coat is all I did. Alright, so once I get this attached, I'm going to flip the board over, and I'm going to glue the pegs in so that they're nice and secure. It was really cold, and I could not get the glue to come out, so I ended up using a paintbrush and painting the glue in, which is fine. I actually prefer this method a lot of times anyway. If I would have squirted glue in there, I would have came back with a paintbrush anyway. I really probably should condense all my glues because I tend to have like 5 or 6 cans going at one time. Alright, so again, you don't want to overfill. You just want to get it nice and covered on each hole. And then I'm going to clean up as much of the glue as I can, because if it dries, you can sand it, but you have to remember that those pegs are going to be there, so it's not going to be the easiest task. So the more cleanup you do now, the better you'll be. And all I did was push the pegs in really secure. And then, like I said, wiped off any excess glue. That one had a lot of glue. And then I'll let this dry overnight. And it came out really nice. Although I didn't get a very good picture of the final product, I do show you what it looks like at the end. And here it is. Here's the final product. And for $1, I actually love this project. Alright, thanks for watching. If you like it, please make sure you subscribe. You can find us over on Facebook at Happy Anderson. Thanks so much.